Mind that all the donations that we raise tonight will go directly towards AFTH's programs and services. We do encourage everyone to donate. Our goal is to reach $500, and from what I hear, we're already at $456.98. So we are hopeful that we can get to our goal. There are a few ways that you can donate. The first is going back to the introduction email that was sent to you with tonight's information. There should be a link in there that you can simply click and it'll take you to the donation center. You can also follow the instructions on the screen, or you can open your chat box to find the donation link inputted there as well. We also have a raffle at the end of the night. We're going to be giving away a $100 Amazon gift card. So please be sure, if you haven't already, to purchase some raffle tickets. They will be closing the entries at 8:15. So if you do have any questions throughout the event or you have any comments, please feel free to input them into the chat box. We're going to try something a little different tonight in having all of your questions kind of be filtered through the chat box. So at the end of the presentation, our team is going to relay the questions to me and we'll kind of pose them that way. So please feel free, if you think of anything throughout the presentation, to just simply put it in the chat box, and we'll do our best to make sure we cover everybody's questions or comments. Okay, so before we turn to our guest panelists, we do have a brief video from our executive director, Heidi Gonzalez.
My name is Heidi Gonzalez. I am the Executive Director of Adoptions from the Heart. I am a member of the LGBTQ community. I am married to a woman. Several members of my family are part of the LGBTQ community, so I have a really strong connection. We had a family in 1990, a gay male couple who was trying to adopt. They had 27 letters of recommendation, and nobody would work with them. We thought that was just insane. So we took them in, got them placed. We actually placed 2 children with them. And that was like really the beginning of us working within the LGBT community. Since then, the HRC has started their initiative. We joined that immediately right from the onset. We have innovator status and continue to try to do more to make our agency inclusive. In the light of being more inclusive and being more innovative, we have brought in an intersectionality class to really explain not just, the difference in race or ethnicity, but also income, gender identity, all of that, so that families are really more understanding of all of these different things that kind of make up a person. We do not believe in conversion therapy. We actually have families sign something that say that they will not use conversion therapy. And we want to just make sure that families and children both are safe and welcome. We really just stand for inclusivity, that we are really open to all family, whether you're single, you're married, you're heterosexual, you're trans, you're lesbian, gay, it doesn't matter. If you are a person who is looking to adopt and are the right fit for our agency, we're going to welcome you. You have to stand for openness, you have to stand for equality, and you have to be open to taking a child of any nationality or race. I think it's just a matter of empowering women to make choices, to show that there's all different kinds of families out there.
Well said. Heidi has been a major motivator of making sure that we are inclusive, and we're all about love and making sure that people are given options and building families in the right way. So thank you, Heidi, for sharing that. Okay, so we are going to first start from the birth parent perspective. It's important that we highlight birth parents making the choice, because as most of you know, in our agency, it's the birth parents who are the ones who choose the adoptive parents. So Allison, I'm going to pick on you first. If you can first start by maybe sharing with the group some of your initial reasons of why you were choosing adoption, and just what the process was like for you when you were reviewing those profiles, and why you ultimately chose the same-sex female couple that you did.
So, hi. All we're told, my name's Allison. I placed my son in 2017 with Jess and Elena. I had originally chose adoption because the person I was with at the time and I both had decided long before that we found out we were pregnant that we were not able to handle more kids. I'm sorry. Okay, hang on 1 second, okay? Sorry, Luna. Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry. We had just decided that I wasn't comfortable with abortion, but that I couldn't necessarily raise the child on my own. I am so sorry. Hang on 1 second. Someone's knocking on our door.
And this is the reality of parenting, right? We'll just give Allison a quick minute, guys. She'll be right back.
There we go. Sorry, my daughter's dinner had gotten here late, but anyway, we just decided that adoption was for us, and he wasn't going to be able to be very present during the pregnancy, so I kind of went looking for an agency where I was going to get the kind of support that I needed because it was going to just be me. And I found Amanda, surprisingly. She was also my adoption counselor. And I told her, everything about me and my pregnancy, and she showed me, got a binder together of people that, would be interested in able to adopt my child. And as we went through it, I remember liking a few different couples. Put it down. And when Jess and Elena first popped up, I immediately fell in love with them, honestly, because they remind me of my sister and her wife. They're very similar in the way that they both they're nearly identical, honestly, and it kind of made me feel like someone that I already knew would be adopting my son. And then when I met them, it got even better because then I got to know them. And while they are similar, I remember saying to Amanda, I was like, I don't have anything against straight couples, but I just really feel like I want to go with a gay couple specifically because there's really no other way that they can, make a family. And the fact that they're willing to go with adoption kind of is amazing to me. And I wanted to further support that. And this is kind of the best way that you can be able to support that community. My sister's been part of it. We all knew since she was born, but she came out when she was 16. So I mean, we've been part of the community almost my entire life, and I didn't see a better way to be able to support that community than to make sure that I was putting my child in a home that I knew would have them loved the way that I was loved growing up. And it's just easier found in the LGBTQ community. Everyone in this community has had to struggle to validate their love or their relationship, and it makes a stronger kind of love in my opinion that really can't be found anywhere else but in this community. And I wanted my child to grow up surrounded by that. And aside from the fact that Justin and Elena's profile was perfect and the goofy pictures of them with Lily just immediately made me fall in love with them, they have gone above and beyond what I had hoped for Isaac. It's a kind of love and balance that I just don't see anywhere else being able to produce what Jess and Elena do for Isaac. It's just the best kind of love, and I'm incredibly grateful that my child is growing up surrounded by that.
And Allison, I think it's hard when families are trying to design their profile, right? Because it can be really intimidating and overwhelming of making sure they give it their best shot. And there sometimes can be questions and fears, specifically from folks who are within the LGBTQIA community of, is somebody going to pick us because, say, I'm a same-sex couple, right? What are your thoughts on that, of just the fears associated with it for your experience as a birth parent who simply just wanted to find a family that would love your child?
I was actually really, really glad that they let themselves be funny or be goofy and show that they were human. Like a lot of the profiles that I necessarily wasn't drawn to looked like set up photos, and everyone looked perfect and was in their place. And I loved that theirs was all three of them like climbing and laying in a tractor. It was funny and it was real. It let me know that my child was being adopted by a family, not a picture of a family. And the personality is what drew me to them. So I mean, it breaks my heart that someone would want to draw back or put out less of them and less of what makes them human and makes them a family to begin with, because of the fear of their sexual preferences getting in the way of someone viewing them the way they should be viewed. It breaks my heart. But it was Jess and Elena's humor and the way that they clearly laughed every day, and I was sure of it just based off their profile. So I mean, I really really want to encourage everybody to let themselves be weird or funny or whatever you are in your profile, because it makes a difference. It really does.
And Allison, as you heard Heidi Gonzalez speak in the video, Adoptions from the Heart really takes pride in the fact that we have all kinds of families, and we're not necessarily an agency that has specific criteria for families coming in terms of the dynamic of their family. What did that mean for you as a pregnant woman trying to navigate what agency to pick? Like, what did that mean for you to specifically work with Adoptions from the Heart and the support you've received from this agency over the years?
It was a huge difference. I mean, Adoptions from the Heart was really the only place that didn't make it so black or white as when it came to closed or open adoption, because I knew that I wanted contact, so I didn't want it to be closed, but I didn't want my level of involvement to have to be 100% or not at all. And I liked that there was finding middle ground, and that I mean, because you were my counselor, you helped me find a common ground with my adoptive family, so that I felt comfortable and they knew what was going on, even with my array of anxiety issues and visits and everything that happened in the first few years. It wasn't ever like a struggle with them, and it was not a struggle for me because I had Amanda to bridge the gap between me and them, and she continued doing so well after the pregnancy was over and they had Isaac at home, and helping me communicate with them in a way that worked for us meant everything to me. And you don't get this level of involvement at any other agency. Most of them, it was not even in-person visits. I wanted an agency and a counselor, and I got her, but that was going to meet me where I was comfortable, because I was petrified going through that. And Amanda really made it so that I was able to do it, let alone, feel good about it at the end of the day.
Thank you, Allison. We appreciate you sharing that. We do have a video from another birth parent. It happens to be Allison's sister, Kristen. She went on to place a child. She placed 3 children for adoption through our agency after Allison. And Kristen's going to share her experience of choosing same-sex couples.
My name is Kristen Jingleski. I am 32 years old and I have placed multiple times. First was in March of 2017. Second time was in September of 2021. Most recent was August of 2023. The first placement that I did, it was kind of like they just fell in my lap, which just further led me to believe that the decision I was making and the family I chose was exactly what it should be. And they're amazing. They're everything. So that was great. When I did my placement in 2021, again, the birth father wasn't really involved. So I was making the decision on my own, looking at profiles on my own. And there was a pretty decent selection. Ralphie and Eric were in that first group of people. And above every other profile I looked at, they were my top candidate. They were the one that I just couldn't get over. I thought everything about them was just super rad. I love the way that Adoptions from the Heart sets up their profiles, and it makes it a little bit more personable and not just like I'm reading a brochure. There's a lot of random details about the family in there, and that's the thing I appreciate the most. Those weird oddity things that happen in their profiles is typically what wins me over. And when I did my placement last year, funnily enough, the thing that stuck out to me the most was the fact that they had chickens. I was obsessed with it, and they just seemed like they were genuinely happy. They had done one other placement. It was an emergency placement through their family, but they were ready to adopt a child of their own that was of their own choice. And now I couldn't ask for better families. I really couldn't. They're amazing. They've been there for me, not just through my emotions and the waves of feelings that happen with making a placement, but outside of that too. With my everyday life, I could message any one of my families and they would be there for me to talk or give me an ear, whatever the case may be. I'm always open to viewing all different kinds of profiles, because who am I to judge whether you're gay or single or straight or married or not married? If you're in Adoptions from the Heart and you have a profile through them, you want a child, that means that you're willing to love another child as if it were your own. So who am I to judge any of the other stuff? I personally had no set preference on whether it was going to be a deal breaker if they were gay, because that would never be the case. It definitely wasn't anything that would have turned me away from choosing them. And now I think it was literally two of the best decisions I've made. Try and have an open mind, because if it were you on that other side and you didn't necessarily fit into the perfect all-American family, you would want someone to give you a chance and look at your profile, because I'm sure it's probably a lot harder for same-sex couple or the single parents that are trying to adopt. It has to be really difficult for them. I would encourage just to have an open mind and just be willing to at least look, because it's not going to hurt you to look at a profile and read about these people, because you never know, reading someone's profile that you might have before been like, oh, that's a no-go for me. If you read that profile, it could really, really change your mind. Just keep your head up. Don't lose the faith, because there are a lot of us out there that are more than willing to look at and eventually maybe pick you. Well, Adoptions from the Heart is everything. You guys are one of my biggest supporters in so many different ways. It has meant a lot to me that you guys don't discriminate against pretty much anybody, especially because I myself am part of the LGBTQ plus community, but also I have family that is. But then on top of that, I'm also a recovering addict. So if you guys would have been picky or judgy or choosy about who you let or lend your services to, I possibly would have never been able to choose the families that I've chosen through you guys. It means the world to me that you guys are as open and not discriminatory as you are.
Thank you to Kristen for doing that video for us. Not sure if you guys connected the dots when it came to the chickens, but Kristen actually placed with Nathan and Matt, who are on the call today. So again, we're thankful to Kristen for sharing her story. I think it's important for you guys to hear from birth parents. You know, oftentimes when we as social workers are counseling adoptive parents and discussing kind of what it's like for birth parents to choose, it's better when you hear it directly from them. And I can't tell you how often we meet with birth parents who specifically say, I want a same-sex male couple. That is my preference. That is my desire. So something that somebody may think is a hindrance actually may be the reason why you're selected. So I'm really appreciative that Allison and Kristen are both able to share that with you. So now let's open things up to our adoptive families. I wanted to kind of start this part of the presentation with you talking about the highs and the lows of being a same-sex couple and navigating building your family through adoption. So Anne-Marie and Darlene, can we start with you guys? Just kind of sharing a little bit of overall, full circle, your experience navigating building your family, what it was like coming to the agency, you know, all around the highs and lows for you.
Well, we went on a very long journey. We've been together for almost 20 years now. And the first 10, 15, we talked about the family, how we were going to do it. And we went through, all right, I'm going to get pregnant first. That whole thing, that didn't work out. You're going to get pregnant. That whole thing, that didn't work out. We even had different baby daddies who we were considering, but that fell through. And then we finally were like, we're going to adopt. we want to explore this journey and how we were going to do it.
Yeah.
And then we even looked through different adoption agencies, and we really appreciated the openness.
We did our homework.
Yeah.
Also, adoption was something that we always wanted to do, whether or not we were going to have biological children or not. We always wanted to adopt. I always wanted to adopt. I don't know what drew me that my whole life. I just wanted to adopt a child.
And I have a lot of close
And
friends
we have a
who
lot
are
of,
adopted.
yeah, I was gonna say that we have a lot of friends and family that are adopted as well. So that's, I think we would just come from that type of like family anyway. You know, and I think that one of the things that we loved about AFTH was that it was very welcoming. We didn't feel uncomfortable. We felt we also trusted the agency, which was that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Because we struggled a lot with our profile, is the cover right, or the photo and all that other stuff. And this is a funny story. We were shown so many times too. And then the one that sticks was interesting because I think it was Danielle, right? And she's like, okay, the birth mom only wanted to see 5 profiles because this was her second placement. And she specifically had said, I just want to see 5 profiles that you think are great. I don't want gay guys. So she said, okay, but she didn't say anything about lesbians. So she shoved the book. So she shoved the book underneath the pile. And then when she saw it, she said, that's them. That's the one, and we were like, wow. So it was
Yeah.
very wild in that experience.
oddly enough, we felt I don't, it's like there's like a feeling too. Like I was like, I don't know. I think this is going to be it, and I think that the highs and the lows were the fact that we were being shown, the fact that we came close a lot to
lot.
be
Yeah.
chosen. And then we weren't, so when we finally were chosen, though, we were like, this is the reason,
Yeah.
it was perfection. I don't know.
It was the match.
It was
Yeah.
just, it couldn't, and you don't really know. It just happened. And
So we try to
Yeah.
tell anybody on the journey, you just have to trust the process, that you will be placed with the best possible fit, because we really were like, I think it was 11 different times that we were going through that roller
I don't know. I
coaster.
didn't count. I
Yeah.
don't remember counting,
Yeah.
but I did. I know it was a lot, and I know I was journaling every month specifically about this, and I would like end every month with, "Is this the one?" So I have almost like a year of just monthly journaling of just the adoption process, which was really cool to see, how it evolved and how it came into fruition. So yeah.
And on the process, we met so many great people we had to take the classes or do this and the
On
seminars.
that video. So that
Yeah.
video that we made, we weren't sure. Well, you were like, I don't want anyone to look at our video because that was an option
Dork.
to
Yeah.
show it or not. And I was like, F it, show the video. Right.
Yeah.
So we showed the video, and that was actually one of the things that we heard also from our birth mother was that
I loved your
she loved the
video.
video. And I was like, see, you never know.
Yeah.
That video.
Yeah. But what
was cool.
was great, even today, we still hear from some of the other adopting parents that have now been placed, and we share pictures of, of the babies that are now kids now, and it's just it's such a great family.
We have a good friend that also adopted from the agency too, and we her daughter is now 13.
13, yeah.
Yeah, so we get together, and then also another family a single mom, a single mother was adopted right in our neighborhood along with us too, a month apart. And we see her as well. We're friends with
Mhm.
her. So it's just how we all find each other eventually, and the support system is incredible. It goes beyond the agency, but the agency is what brought us all together.
Well, guys, we appreciate you sharing that. You know, a lot of the people on the call tonight are prospective adoptive parents that are in the waiting process. And I think it's so valuable for them to hear it straight from you of, you know, continue to have hope. When it's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's like our quote that we always use, but sometimes it's not enough for us to say it. You just need to hear it from somebody who's actually been through it, because the waiting time can just be so hard. And I really appreciate you saying the story about, in your situation, your profile kind of being in there, maybe not necessarily what the birth parent was looking for, and then she matched with you. We hear that all the time. Oftentimes, expecting and birth parents don't even know what they want until they see it, right? Because it's new for them, just like it's new for you. And sometimes it takes looking at profiles and really hearing about people to figure out which is the right fit and who's going to be the forever family for my child. So thank you for sharing that.
Our pleasure.
I'd like to bring Baxter into the conversation. Baxter, do you want to kind of voice a little bit about your journey? You guys waited a very long time. I know you had a lot of highs and lows. It was one of our great honors to place you.
I would try to keep it brief because I mean, between like, I think a high was us aligning that we wanted to be parents. And I think we quickly had a conversation about like options to do that. And we both aligned on that we wanted to adopt. And so we obviously found the agency. We were like, we will get through approval as quickly as possible. We are, you know, and we were living in Long Island City at the time. And so we were going to, I think, the Allentown office, and we got through that pretty quickly. And then got to approval. And I think the wait was really tough. I mean, the wait was 3 years, I would say. And think about the life changes that happened. We moved twice. One was to Jersey City, then obviously to the suburbs. And I think and then obviously when you get approved, you buy everything you need to bring a baby home. So, you know, obviously we were like stuffing that in the closet, you know, don't want to see that. But every time we moved, it was sort of this like, we're still waiting sort of feeling. I would say, strangely enough, a high was when we got information for an emergency placement that we actually agreed to. It didn't work out, but it sort of switched from like feeling like it's never going to happen to, okay, it feels like we're getting a tad bit closer. I remember the moment that it happened. We were hosting friends for a gumbo night. I'm from Louisiana. I cook a lot of Southern food. All of our friends were like, wait, what? Like, I was like, oh, we just agreed to a situation. What? You can find out. I was like, yes, it may not work out. Don't get your hopes up. But then like it just switched to just positivity. And it felt like, you know what, this will happen. Um, and then literally 5 months after that, um, we got the call. And then it was Destiny. Her name is Destiny. I also think it was Destiny that it happened. And then I remember that drive to your office and us being like, is this gonna work out? This feels really good. We met her, it was amazing. And I would say another high would be the hospital experience. We had such a lovely, she came to, you know, Ella came 2 weeks early. It was Memorial Day weekend. We're all over the house, like, put the store in the car, it'll be fine. And we got there an hour after she was born, and immediately she was just ours. The hospital was amazing. We went um and met Destiny and her in her room. We immediately like got our own room. She was with us from the moment, you know, from the time they handed her to us. And then we sort of made the decision that this is a moment that we could cultivate a relationship with Destiny. You know, she was down the hall, which was, you know, a journey that we had mentally been on about like, what is that relationship going to be like? and ultimately decided that we really want to have a strong relationship with her. She was iffy, rightfully so. You want to respect sort of like what those feelings are. We still don't necessarily have a strong relationship with her, but in the moments where we rolled Ella down the hall and gave them time to be alone with just her and her birth mom, and we did that I think a couple 2 or 3 times. And Maddie just asked her, my husband, who was like putting Ella to bed, he'll come back, said, "Hey, do you think at some point you may want to, have a relationship with us?" She was like, "You guys seem pretty cool. I think at some point we will." So I think that was really a highlight of just like trying to cultivate that relationship with her while we had her face to face. We met some of her family, we FaceTime with her family, and just like what could have been a really awkward situation, we decided to like take the opportunity to cultivate the beginnings of what we hope will be a really like long-term fruitful relationship. So I think that's the pinnacle, I would say, of the whole process.
And I do just have to say, because I remember being in the room when your birth parent chose you, and she had over 55 profiles to look at. She had a really big binder. And I just remember when she picked you, I looked at her and I said, what made you pick them? Like, you just had so many profiles to look at. What about this one family made you pick them? And she's like, it just feels right. It just feels right. They're the couple. She doesn't speak a lot of words, birth mom. She's a more reserved soul, but I just remember her saying that it just feels right. They're the right family.
A note on that is that when we did our profile, my husband's French, and he said, "I think this will be the thing that like keeps somebody from choosing us. What if a expectant mom is like, they're gonna take my baby to France, they're never gonna bring them back, like all this stuff." And ultimately, when we met her, something that attracted her to us was our international travels and like being able to see the world. So what we thought was gonna be the thing that kept us from getting a child, was the thing that sort of like got us Ella. So
Well, thank you for sharing that, Baxter, and we'll welcome Matthew back in after he puts
yeah.
the I'd like to bring in Elena to the conversation. Elena, do you want to share your experience with your wife in just kind of navigating some of the highs and lows when you were choosing an agency, and just kind of what your experience was like?
Sure. Well, we have 2 kids. So I think you saw in the picture, Lily's 12 and Isaac is 7. So we work with adoptions from the heart for Isaac, not for Lily. There's like 2 pieces of advice I've gotten when we were doing this, going through adoption that I'll share. One is what everyone's saying about the profile. It's very easy to get angsty and the photos and what are you picking, but just kind of being yourself, right? I remember getting the advice when we were doing one when we're waiting for Lily was, someone's like, some people they see a dog and they have a dog. There's like things you relate to. So that is really solid advice. I would say definitely do that. And the other advice we got the first time around was, let people know that you are waiting to adopt a kid, right? Because you never know what connection is going to lead you there. And I remember one of my coworkers being like, "Oh, why are you sharing this?" I'm like, well, because you never know. And with Lily, one of our good friends in Seattle, her daughter's about 9 months older than Lily. She was in like a new moms group, and there was actually a lesbian couple in that group with the baby. And one of them, her mom, sorry, all these like degrees of separation. Her mom works with Lily's birth grandfather, essentially, right? And he was at work talking about, his daughter was a young college student at the time. Oh, this is happening. My daughter is, thinking about adoption. And because my friend Kate had shared in her new mom's group with this lesbian couple who'd adopted, oh, I have lesbian friends. She's making conversation. Small's like, oh, I have lesbian friends who are waiting to adopt. That was this connection through like Minnesota, Seattle to Maryland. So we did our home site with an agency in Maryland, but we ended up doing placement with an agency in Minnesota. And that, like, we were not planning to like get on a plane to go adopt a baby, right? But you never know kind of where these things will transpire from. So it can, I think, be uncomfortable for some people to talk about. But the more people kind of casually know, you never know who's going to know somebody who knows somebody. So that's one thing I'll share about our experience with adopting Lily. And then when we were, I think she was maybe 2 or so, we're like, okay, we always knew we wanted 2 kids. We both have siblings. All right, let's do the homestay again. And we knew we were getting ready to move, and you have to do out, from DC into Maryland. So just all of that logistics, it just takes time. I felt like I was filling out the same forms for however many years, right, between both adoptions. And so we were looking for an agency kind of in the region, and that's how we found Adoptions from the Heart. The first time around, we went to, so we were living in DC at the time. Human Rights Campaign is in DC, and they had one of these events, come learn about adoption, et cetera. And they had this map that was, here are the LGBTQ friendly agencies. We're like, great, that's good vetting for us. Let's look at a few. But one thing we learned through our first adoption was how important that birth parent counseling is. So we were really specifically looking for agencies that are always there for birth parents, right? From the choice all the way throughout, like that kind of service element was really, really important to us. And there's certainly some agencies that kind of look slick and it feels like business, and they're going to get you a baby, and that was just sort of not for us. So Adoptions from the Heart was a very good fit. Right away, we felt like we're in very good hands with Amanda for that. And then we were parenting a small child at the time, right? So yes, we were waiting, and it took some time, but we also had our hands full. And I remember getting the email. I was at work, and I was like, had a meeting to go to, but I was totally preoccupied and, kind of just nervous, right? You're holding your heart in your hand, like kind of the whole time through. We went up to Wilmington. We met Allison, and I don't remember your friend's name, Allison, but I know a friend came with you, and I think we were all just nervous, and Allison was there. But after a little bit, conversation flowed, fairly freely, and we're like, okay, well that seemed to go well. And it was just a process of then kind of waiting. And the thing that was different for us the second time around was, of course, we had a child, right? So we were trying to figure out, okay, when we're going to go up to Delaware, right? We get the call, birth is happening soon. And thankfully, my parents, this is maybe way too many details to share. My parents are nearby, so they could be with Lily, but we also want to be careful how we're talking with Lily about it, right? Because things can change. Birth parents can choose to parent, which is totally legit. And that actually happened to us before Lily was born, where we were placed with the baby for a couple days, and the birth mom chose to parent the baby. And honestly, I don't even think about it that much, because I love my children, and I wouldn't have my children that I have if that hadn't happened. But we were very sort of guarded, I think, through all, we didn't share pictures with our parents from Minnesota when Lily was born, the same thing, until we were really headed home with Isaac. So Lily kind of knew, but we didn't bring her up there. So we really had to think through, not just for ourselves, how we're handling our emotions, but Lily was 5 at the time, so she could kind of get some things, but not everything. So that was a different factor for us, but we felt really completely supported from Adoptions from the Heart all the way through. The hospital was amazing. One thing I'm sure you all could tell from Allison is she's really articulate about her feelings, which I don't do that well. So I'm always impressed, with letters she writes to us, things that she articulates. But she also really knew what she wanted in the hospital, right? As far like, we visited her, she didn't want to see Isaac during that time. But her parents came up, her sister came up, they met him, but it was really, the communication was really good, whether that was direct or through Amanda. And I think that made us feel comfortable. It was also very different hospital settings. Lily was born in this tiny town in Minnesota. She was the only baby in the hospital. All the staff was like very excited because they'd never had an adoptive family there before. And, and then in the hospital in Newark, there were loads of babies on it was just a big hospital. It was a very different kind of setting. But yeah, I'll stop talking. There's probably way too many more details than people maybe wanted.
I mean, the details help. People want to hear those details because most folks have not adopted before that are on this call, and they want to know out. So we appreciate you sharing, Elena. You guys and Allison share such a special bond, It's interesting because I know you guys don't always see each other all the time. And I know that Elena and Jess are very respectful of Allison's space and her privacy and her comfort level. But I think somehow, even through the quiet times, you all truly connect and you love each other and you respect each other. And I've seen that firsthand over the years, you know, in talking with Allison and just what she gets from you all.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting way to look at open adoption because people always assume it's either you have a lot of openness or no openness at all. And you guys are kind of in the middle, just based off of
Yeah.
comfort level and what she wants. And I just think it's nice to point that out.
Yeah, and I will say this is where also like the internet is kind of great. Like we before Shutterfly canceled their share sites, now we're on like, just sharing Google Photos. But we do the like every 6 months. I actually just did captions for the half year this time. So Allison, you'll be getting those soon when we finish up. But it's nice. Even sometimes she'll write a comment back on one of the photos. There was some in one of the last couple albums. Isaac falls asleep anywhere, right? He fell asleep on a moving airplane where it's like taking off. And he's just, in a train, metro train, wherever. So there's a number of these pictures, and Allison commented on one of those. Oh my God, I can fall asleep anywhere too, and it's so special for us to hear these things that come from genetics, right? And to see pictures of Luna and see some of the resemblance. It's really special.
Well, thank you for sharing, and we appreciate being here with Allison just to kind of show that connection firsthand. So thank you. I'd like to bring Nathan and Matthew to the conversation. If you guys want to share your experience of working with Adoptions from the Heart, why you chose us, why it was important to have that inclusivity like we've spoken about, and ultimately how you've kind of gone through this process with birth mom, Kristen.
Absolutely. So we're gonna attempt to have our 7 next month-year-old also on this part of the conversation. And if there's a question that you maybe want to ask the sister, she's willing to answer as well, Amanda. So afterwards. So as Amanda shared in our introduction, Maggie is a family adoption, and it was an emergency placement, as Kristen noted. So Maggie is Matt's brother's biological, Matt's biological niece. The Maggie's bio parents, the birth mom, at the time had a 9-year-old, and Matt's brother and birth mom together had a 18-month-old. We'll get to Adoptions from the Heart, but it was a surprise because they denied that they were pregnant. They were at the beach actually exactly 7 years ago, and Matt's mom went to birth mom and she said, "Hey, are you pregnant again?" And they denied that they were pregnant. And then Matt's dad gets a call from birth mom's mom saying, "Ready to be a grandfather again?" And he's like, "What?" And they're like, "She's going to the hospital now." So we learned about Maggie being born on a Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, it was tossed around, well, would Matt and Nathan be willing to adopt her? Or, is this something that we're going to have to place her with Child Protective Services? Saturday confirmed they were willing to place with us, and that there were no serious medical issues. So they did have some drug concerns when Maggie was born, but there was no kind of pieces. So Sunday morning, we were at Target at 8 a.m. when it opened, bought a bunch of stuff, and went over to the hospital. I shared that part of the story because of family adoption. One of the, not lows necessarily, but I think one of the things we adjusted to was we didn't have to do any of the training that you all have gone through with Adoptions from the Heart or any other agencies. It was basically like we had a daughter and we walked home from the hospital. So there was no home study, there was no pre-classes, there were no kind of logistics, things that we had to go through. So I think for us, that was probably one of the frustrating parts, and understandably so. But for many heterosexual couples, they have the ability to go, oops, and then there's a baby coming along. And the steps that we have to go through as same-sex couples or couples that aren't biologically able to have children. I think that was a frustrating part for us at times because it did feel like an extra hoop. I think, why do we need to get an HIV test? How is that any relevant to our kind of ability to parent. So I think there's just some of the societal pieces that were frustrating for us. COVID happened in the middle of this, so we were trying the process earlier, probably in 2019, but COVID kind of delayed. And we were working with an agency in the DC area, but they did not have space. So Adoptions from the Heart was just one of the recommended agencies that we got sent over. I will say the equity piece, I think, was really evident from that. And that's what my dissertation is in, my work is in that sort of area. So I appreciated really the centering of Black and Brown kind of individuals, the training, all of those sorts of things. I will say again, though, our frustration, a lot of the interracial conversations out there are assuming it's a white parent adopting a child of color. And as a Asian American, Filipino, Spanish mixed race person, I think that was and I appreciate Adoption from the Heart always being open to the feedback, but I think that was just really interesting for me because a lot of those conversations weren't relevant around kind of the culture and how that interacts. So I think for those couples out there in an interracial relationship, I think something just definitely to think about and talk through. We knew we wanted at least a mixed race child, if not a full child of color. Matt's mom lives with us, as I mentioned, and I'll let Matt talk about that a little bit. But I think that was really important kind of as we navigated. The last piece, and I'll let Matt kind of add the story of how we matched with Kristen and the chickens. I think the other important thing to remember in the process is that your birth parents are also going through just as much as you are. And it's easy to think about your story. It's easy to think about your relationship, but you need to remember that they also are having their own journey and they should be able to have that own journey. I think we have a close relationship with Kristen, and Amanda was our counselor as well as Kristen's. And as Kristen noted, she's placed before, so she knew Amanda. And Amanda did smile because she probably knows some of the stories I'm going to say. But I think for us, we were texting Kristen once we were matched. And I think that's not usually that common. Usually it's still through the agency that you're working on those communications. And at times, Kristen went radio silent. And I think for us, that's well, she backing out, what's going on? When really Kristen had her own life that she was working through and issues that she had to deal with. And we needed to remember that. And, I think it obviously all worked out. Kristen thankfully invited us to be in the room with her when the child was born. I think we got to meet birth dad and start to forming our relationship with him. But I think those pieces that the access was really helpful at times, but then also probably additional nerve-wracking for us. And I think that's something just to think through around the pieces.
Funny.
Yep. So we're gonna let Daddy talk and then I can talk.
Hi everyone, I'm Matthew. You can't whisper in somebody's ear while they're finishing a thought, buddy. What do I have to share? That was a whole lot. What was I gonna say? One of the things that was scary to me, I was very I loved the open philosophy of Adoptions from the Heart, especially once we understood the child-centric nature of why they are that way and all of the psychology and studies that show that connection and being able to reach back at that moment in your life and your development is so critical to a child's development. We were all on board, and I remember being really trepidatious about, who's going to select us, who is this birth mom going to be? Yeah, I'm looking at you, Kristen. And it was one of those things where, like, the second we were matched and the second we were connected, like, all those trepidations went away because it was like, oh, this is just like a new relationship, a new kind of relationship, a new person that's going to be in our lives, that we're taking into our lives forever. And I love our level of openness, and I think that surprised me a whole lot, that it's felt a lot more natural than I had thought, just because like Nathan said, this one that's sitting here, like, this is my biological niece, and like her birth parents are my brother and her Aunt Erica, so that is a totally different thing that didn't in any way prepare us to have somebody pick us out of the blue because of our chickens. And yes, it was Maggie and the chickens have had a tough year, Kristen. Well, Aaliyah's had a great year. The chickens have had a rough year. We'll talk about that later. What else can I share? Yeah, I will say that Adoptions from the Heart saying that they value diversity, equity, and inclusion and an open space for all is not just lip service. And I think one of the reasons that I know that is when talking to Amanda about the fact that Nathan and I were not open to a fully white child, which had to be a conversation with us because, as Amanda said, it's one of their guiding principles that their adoptive parents must be open to all children of all races. And once we really unpacked with them that I have a husband who is a person of color living with an all white family. We adopted my very white, blonde haired, blue eyed niece. And we had always envisioned our family to be multicultural and looking looking not just one way. So we never wanted it to be like, the white family and then brown data forever. So it was really important to us that we just didn't adopt another child that was fully white. And Amanda was able to say, we support that. We talked about it. We are on board with supporting that. And I have to let you know that you should be prepared to wait a long time. And the reason is because a lot of our moms of color, our Black moms, our Latinx moms come from communities and from cultures that have more ingrained homophobia. And it is in my experience much less likely that a Black birth mom or a Latinx birth mom might choose a gay couple. And lo and behold, she was right. We were chosen by a white birth mom that had a Black birth father. And that expertise and that insight really told me from that conversation forward that it wasn't just lip service, that Adoptions from the Heart understood our community. They understood the needs of our community. They were really in tune with the experience of LGBTQIA people trying to adopt and grow their families. And from that moment forward, I was like really, really all in. And it's been an amazing, wonderful experience. My last piece of advice is, if you are lucky enough to be invited by your birth mom to be a part of the birthing experience, and there is a midwife that says, don't worry, it's going to be many, many hours from now. Everybody chill, take 5. And you have a hotel room that's right down the street and you want to go try to take just a little bit of a nap. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because, you might be the dad that's actually not in the room when it actually happens and you're rushing in the moment after because your new daughter is as willful as her birth mother and is going to debut when she decides. And that was one of the highlight moments for us. Yeah. And also I just wanted to mention the birth dad. I think it's really important to be open, and as hard as it is, with as much fear as is instinctual walking into the experience, to try to remain as open as you can, because you have no idea what's going to unfold for you, and that's kind of exciting and really cool. And I think Dennis, our daughter Aaliyah's birth father, is a great example of that, because he was there and a part of the experience to support Kristen, to be her friend, and through the crazy experience that is a child coming into this world, we hung out a lot. We had a lot of time together. We went through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A and did 7-Eleven runs and things. And lo and behold, after that experience, we got to the place where he was like, I think I'm cool with Aaliyah, like, reaching out if she, wants to find me at some point and things like that. And it was really cool to feel that shift for him in the moment, just through us having this very unique and kind of amazing experience together. That was a really cool part of it for me.
I think that birth mom, Kristen, Dennis, Nathan, Matt, and I will always remember that moment in the hospital that we were together for several hours. But it was certainly a magical experience, and I'm happy that you got to see the birth of Aaliyah. More importantly, Miss Maggie, question for you. Are you enjoying being a big sister? Yes.
One of the pieces that I think was important. This is what I was whispered to start to tell, but I think one of the pieces. So Kristen is in Delaware. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, when the baby's born, you need to stay in that state until you get the paperwork to leave. We were fortunate that Matt's family has a beach house in Delaware Beaches, so that's actually where we went. And I think if you have the ability to not be in a hotel room, but in a space that feels more like a home during those waiting time periods, I would recommend that. Obviously, it's an additional cost. We obviously had a very fortunate opportunity, but being able to be in a space that we knew that was familiar, or at least more like a home rather than a hotel room during that waiting period, during that transition, especially for you first time parents out there, you don't know what you're doing. So the ability to have those spaces, I think, was important. When we took Aaliyah, so similar, I think, to Elena and their story, we did not bring Maggie to Delaware. There is the revocation period, so we didn't, we wanted to be intentional in that opportunity. And Matt's parents came along and met Maggie. And now, do you want to tell the rest of the story when you first met her, or no?
What happened when you met
her? Okay, well, I already started, so you tell it now. Your part. How did you feel when you first met Aaliyah?
You remember? Was it? It was about to be a year ago.
She's embarrassed.
You don't want to say. Well, and I think we really Elena's story really resonated because obviously Maggie was 5 during that happening, no, you were 5, buddy. You turned 6 after Aaliyah was born, because remember, you're after. That's true. So you were almost 6. That's true. But it was, Amanda, gave the sage advice that she needs to give of, tell the truth to children, which I always really believe in. And, a lot of agencies will say, tell the older child that you're caring for the child for a while, that it's really was difficult for us to navigate, where we try to have a really open and honest household. And what resulted in, like, we had the most honest conversations that we could with Maggie, and we just sort of sat with her in the fact that it was really hard for her to live in the gray area. So she was really excited about being a big sister, and then we also had to say that, like, this is not.
Myself down.
That's yes. It's
to cry.
Oh, when you saw the baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But we ended up on the other side of it, but it was a very challenging part of it, because we didn't want to take away the joy of what was happening, but we also wanted to be really honest with, like, the process and everything like that. So it ended up being, like, in her own 6-year-old version of it, she sort of sat in that moment with us. But yeah, luckily it worked. Did it work out okay? Yeah, who wakes you up every morning now? Aaliyah. No, she gets Aaliyah's very into giving hugs now, so she gets a hug from her sister every morning when she wakes up. So it's all worked out well.
We are very happy for you guys. I know you have a beautiful family, and we're excited that you've been able to share that. And thank you, Maggie, for participating tonight. You're doing a great job. So we are going to take a slight pause, guys, and we are going to show you a video coming from Nicole Fowler and Amran Abdi, Director of Social Services and Adoption Counselor here at Adoptions from the Heart.
Hi there, I'm Nicole with Adoptions from the Heart.
Hi, my name is Emrin and I'm a social worker here at Adoptions from the Heart, and I'd love to chat about our intersectionality course and the benefits of attending.
It's a course that I really enjoy leading because it's such a group dynamic. Everybody is participating and learning more about themselves and sharing. I can, as a presenter, or a facilitator, be the end-all know-all of different identities and how that affects a person's life.
And you might be thinking, why does intersectionality matter in the world of adoption? And while we have a whole course on it, the short answer to that question is it just acknowledges that everyone has multiple identities and is subject to various forms of intersecting oppression, and the importance of being aware of how our own identity and relative privilege affects how you view the world, how I view the world, how everybody views the world differently.
And also, when you do have a child through adoption, that adds another layer to their identity. So being able to prepare yourself through parenting through the intersectionality education course is a great way to explore what this all looks like and how that may affect your child and your family.
And some topics we discuss in the course include intersecting categories, visible and invisible identities, privilege and heteronormative culture, systems of oppression, social class and adoption, understanding gender and sex, the gender pay gap, internalized prejudice and discrimination, and performative activism versus genuine allyship. And we understand that some of these topics might be hard to discuss and it might be hard to be vulnerable, but here at Adoptions from the Heart, we value hearing from you, your stories, your experience, and your thoughts, and we look forward to hearing your voice.
Again, we appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Nicole and to Amron for sharing that. As Nathan had mentioned, I think when he was sharing, a big piece when you're going through the adoption process at our agency is taking our education, and the classes that we've implemented really align with the values that we hold. And we are trying to make sure that we are addressing some of these topics, and intersectionality is a big piece to all of this, and making sure that our children grow up and have the ability to identify in whatever way they choose, and having an understanding of maybe why different layers of who people are can affect the adoption triad. So thank you to the ladies for sharing that snippet. And if anyone's interested in the education that we provide, you can always feel free to reach out to one of our local offices. Okay, we're going to kind of leave off on our last topic. We're having great discussion, and this is kind of open for anybody who wants to share, just kind of being conscious of time, guys, so everyone can get a little bit in. It's funny, during these presentations, we always think there's going to be so much time, and there's just such great discussion. We need like a whole nother hour. But if you guys maybe want to talk a little bit about just, there's still a lot of misconceptions out there about parenting, and you know, the idea of the LGBTQ community stepping into the world of adoption. And I'm just curious, for those who are living it, what you want people to know, you know, what you want in general our community to know about that journey, and additionally, how you plan on moving forward as a family and making sure that you address some of these inclusive conversations that we're having. And anybody can start in terms of our guest panelists. Was it a loaded question, guys? Nathan, do you want to start us off?
Of course you're gonna pick me. You know, I think the biggest piece is it's the little things that you're not thinking about, and then they just pop up and you're like, oh. You know, and I don't know if this answers your question, Amanda, but I remember when I was walking with Maggie when she was maybe 2, and we were walking to, actually I can, maybe this is more interracial rather than
That's okay.
but 2 stories kind of related to Maggie. One is when she was 2 and walking, and I was like, oh, if I keep looking young and she's a college student, it's just gonna look like I'm that creepy old guy that's dating someone really younger. And I know that's a weird feeling to have, but that was one of the pieces that came in, and that's probably more interracial. I think the other piece that we've had, and maybe this is both, is we've had to have conversations, especially with Maggie as she's gotten older, around not everyone will see us as your legitimate parent. And the fact that, like, I remember we were carrying around her birth certificate those first couple years whenever we were flying, and everyone's like, no, they're not going to ask. I was like, yeah, but I don't know. And you know, I think we were at Disney on Ice, and Maggie had one of her meltdowns, ran away. I'm running after her, and I'm like, Maggie, you can't do this. If someone hears you scream, no, don't touch me, I hate you, I don't know you, they're not going to know that I'm your dad. You know, they're not going to make that connection. And again, that's maybe more of a racial thing rather than being a same-sex couple. But I think there's just some of those realities, that there's little things that sometimes people can take for granted in a relationship, and it's more that external interaction that I've definitely had to be more cognizant, and we all have more cognizant because of our you know, our life.
No, that's exactly what we were hitting on, Nathan. So I appreciate you sharing that. Matthew, I want to give you a chance because I know you were putting your little one down. Just kind of your thoughts in general. You can also address the topic we're talking about, but just your thoughts on some of the discussion we've been having.
Yeah, I was going to say that I completely agree with what was just said. Sorry, actually, was it Nathan? About sometimes feeling like the other. So my husband and my daughter are Black, I'm white, I'm also a foreigner. and we're a same-sex couple. So oftentimes I'm not perceived as the father of my daughter. I think people will immediately think that it's Baxter, and if we're with a female friend, they will assume that she's the mother, and I'm just some random guy that's just tagging along. And that happened to us on vacation
Multiple times.
We were in a hotel in Cancun with Baxter's best friend, who's black as well. And we started talking to other people, and some guy said, "So you came here on your own, and you just happened to make friends with these guys?" I was like, "Well, no, that's my daughter, that's my husband, and this is our friend." And they were very surprised. And I would say that happens quite often, actually. It's not the best feeling, but I know the love that I have for my daughter. I know the love she has for me, and it doesn't really bother me that much. I'm getting used to it, let's say.
And generally, I think we've gotten multiple comments while out with friends about like, where's the mom?
Yeah.
And it's usually like, oh, she, like, we are her parents. And again, like, people are always like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And then we have the job of being like, oh, it's okay. Like, it's okay to like, which we shouldn't have to, but we do just to sort of diffuse the situation. But ultimately, we're always like, keep it moving. It's fine. Like, these situations will happen, and don't sort of let it kill the vibe or ruin the day, sort of thing. So
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's exactly what Nathan was saying. And you're right, you shouldn't have to. And I understand why you do, but I think it's important that we use spaces like tonight to mention that and the idea of othering, right? And not wanting to have to go through that. So thank you. Darlene, I want to bring you back to the convo. Can you share, and then Darlene and Elena, actually, this goes for both of you. How are you planning on talking to your kiddos as they get older about preparing? And, it's not just about keeping your kid in your bubble, but dealing with the outsiders and the public and just what people say. What is going to be your go-to, or those conversations that you and your partners are having to prepare?
What was the question?
Well, I think with us, our big takeaway for our son was families are made of different mixtures now. There is no one singular story of it's got to be a mommy and a daddy. And all right, real funny story. We went on a family vacation. The guys made me think of this. And there was a magician doing a show.
Oh, no.
And do you want to finish telling
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. So he was, how old was he? 3?
3, yeah.
3 or 4. So we're at this family hotel, and the magician is an older gentleman, and he's like, yeah, you're here with your mommy and daddy. And he's like, oh, I don't have a daddy. And the whole place went, oh, and I was like, oh no. And everyone looked at me, and I was by myself. You weren't even there.
I wasn't in the room yet.
She wasn't even there. But
so since then we have, we've changed. We're like, why did you not? He didn't correct it, and we were like,
but he does though.
He does now.
No,
but
he
after
does.
that,
He does correct.
But going forward from that, we talk with him, and it's like, look, all families are different. You have 2 mommies. There's 2 daddies. There's a grandma. There's aunties. There's brothers. There's uncles. That's it. You can't, there's not one formula for what makes family love the children. That's it. And going forward, he always constantly is like, I have 2 moms, I don't have one, I have 2 moms.
He actually, the first
So-
time he said that, he was 2, and he was getting like his first official haircut, and the hairstylist, she was like, oh, you're so cute like your mommy and daddy. And he was like, no, 2 moms. And she's like, oh, well, you're even luckier. Like it was like a positive interaction, which is good.
With the more dialogue of him just not, there is no one formula. Well, I have 2 moms. What do you have? And he just opens it up. So he's not shy about, he owns it. He doesn't wait for other people to say anything else about it. He will come forthright and say, I have 2 moms.
we also have other, oh, here he is, getting out of bed. So he also, we also are around other families that are also two moms or two dads, and so he's exposed to many different families.
Yeah,
And
that's what we find is
yeah.
important too.
Mhm.
We want to have many diverse friends and family as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Did that answer the question? I don't really do
No, it did. And again, I appreciate you guys adding in those little tidbits, because even though they may seem just silly and little, they help other families in thinking about the future of things people really maybe had not even thought of in terms of becoming a parent. So thank you for sharing that. Elena, did you want to mention something? I think you were gonna, yeah.
Yeah, this was just something that sort of surprised me when Lily was, I don't know, somewhere between like 4 and 6. And we had, we've always talked to our kids about the fact that they're adopted. I made like one of those kind of shutterfly books you can make, and you just, oh, here's the birth story. We go to Minnesota, it was snowy, here's pictures of your birth, all that. So she's kind of always known she's adopted. There was one point when she said something about the neighbors, and I realized that she thought everybody was adopted, which never occurred to me to like clarify. Right. And she was like, oh, well, who were their birth parents? I was like, oh, honey, Ryan and Nathan, like their parents are their birth parents and their parents. They live with them too. And it was just, when you're growing up, you think, oh, well, everybody uses beach towels as a bath towel just because it's like what your family does or whatever. So we were being so careful to talk to her about like her story. We didn't really clarify, like, I guess we made some assumptions about like the norm and what she'd pick up on. So just that was a funny kind of thing to share. And it was funny when I was thinking about, okay, we're going to do this webinar tonight, and what is it like to be, gay parents? I'm like, well, I don't know what it's like not to be, right? It's, people had asked me this when I was growing up because I'm a twin. Oh, what's it like to have a twin? I'm like, I don't know. What's it like to have siblings of different ages? Zero idea. But something I was thinking about, well, what are some stories that I can share where it kind of pops up? And sometimes it does come up with like some of the stories Darlene was sharing where people just make some assumptions. And the one way that it comes out, especially when you start to have school age kids, when you're just like arranging play dates, right? Okay, who happens to be here? Let me put your contact. I have people in my phone. I don't know their last name. It just says like so and so's mom, right? I don't know who, their identity as an adult individual. And sometimes it's like if Jess is with Isaac that time, like, so then she's coordinating play dates with that parent because she exchanged the numbers. And if we're not socializing with those folks, they don't always realize. And then if I come to pick him up, sometimes they're confused, and then it's fine. Then they kind of remember and go on. But friends of ours who are men, they run into this with kind of gender expectations where our friend Eric will be, with his son at something with a first grade class, and his son's playing with another kid. Oh, let me talk to this other parent here, this dad, to get the contact information. So sometimes the dad will be like, oh, well, you should talk to my wife, or he'll expect Eric to pass it on to his wife, who he has a husband. So there's these weird gender norms that still kind of come through with some of that. I know it seems like a small thing, but it does crop up in just everyday stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Alina.
Yeah.
Allison, I want to bring it back to you as we're kind of nearing the end of our discussion. Final thoughts or advice that you have specifically for folks on this call, because as I mentioned, a lot of people here are waiting families, and just advice you have as a birth parent, specifically for, LGBTQ folks, and what you want to say to them.
Really, it's been hard watching. My best friend is waiting for a baby right now with her wife, and watching how hard they're trying to make sure that they look the way that they want, the birth parents to have them think that they look. They want to look, as a perfect package or a better looking package. And honestly, the thing that made me pick Jess and Alina was how ridiculously real they were, and how much personality was in just one little binder, page and paragraph they put out there. Be less afraid to just be yourself in the entire process, because it's what made me fall in love with them. It's what made picking them feel right. And honestly, I'm so glad that they let themselves be weird, because it's what immediately drew me to them. And instead of trying to be perfect because you think someone's going to discriminate against you, the birth parent that's meant for you won't do that. But they would love to see everything about how awesome your family is and how great you guys are, and in different ways that make you the family that they're looking for. Because trying to perfect package the entire family look isn't what we're searching for. We're searching for where our soul feels right with our child being raised by that family. And I just really hope a lot of you be a little less scared to show more personality, more of yourselves.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for sharing that, and just for kind of giving that level of hope for folks who are waiting to build their family and have beautiful little ones like you see on this call from our guest panelists. So guys, we have a couple of minutes. I want to open it up to folks. We didn't get too many questions in the chat box. I will kind of go off script and just say, if anybody wants to quickly, just be conscious of time, share any sort of comment or address someone specifically that was a guest panelist tonight. I believe Vito had something he wanted to mention. So if we want to start with Vito. I think you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm just taking this all in, and I just wanted to tell everyone about our story quickly. And I feel for the potential adoptive families. It's a really rough time. Our story was 2.5 years being a gay couple. My husband's actually working right now. It was painful. I remember almost every single potential situation that would come through, and serially calling our adoption counselor. Did we hear anything? It was agonizing, and it took so much out of us. And after 2 years, be careful what you wish for. I just want to give all you guys hope. Be careful what you wish for, because good things happen, and things happen, and they happen very quickly. We're both in healthcare. We got called about a separate foster situation with a safe haven baby. We don't know what was happening. And the day before we got picked, we called up our adoption agent, our adoption counselor, and just said, "What the hell? What the heck's going on? We're total breakdown. We're a great family. Why aren't we being picked?" And got a pep talk, and we were going to plan a trip to go to Europe. We were going to go to Portugal just to forget about everything, put everything on pause. We just couldn't take it anymore. The very next day, I was in my office, and I got this weird phone call at 11 o'clock from a number in South Jersey that no one would ever call me from. And I knew. And we got picked by a mom who was a lesbian with twins. And we have 3 kids, all essentially the same age. And it was a remarkable situation. Just listening to everyone's story, things happen very quickly. And it's your story. And one of the things about Adoptions from the Heart that I loved is we got building blocks. They taught us like building blocks, like a flow sheet of what is open adoption. I keep hearing respect for the birth moms. These central tenets that we applied to our adoption paradigm, and things just happen so quickly when they happen, and you're not going to remember certain things. You're going to remember other things, and it's all this beautiful tapestry of your story. And Adoptions from the Heart, up until this very day, we finalized in March of 2023. If I have a question about if I have to change one of my daughters in a restaurant and go into a public bathroom, we're potty training now. How does that work in this crazy environment we live in now? Heidi would get on the phone. Our adoption agent will get on the phone, and our relationship with the birth mom. I was listening to all these stories. Our story wasn't ideal, but the tenants were there, and it was beautiful in its own story. And as long as you maintain, the stuff you learn at the talks, the TED Talks, the counseling, it really helps propagate through this. And just to summarize about being an LGBTQ dad, and we're leaders. We have to kind of pave the way. We have to have gumption. We have to lead by example. Surround yourself with people that are like you. That's why we always kind of try to plug in and make our community as diverse as possible. A lot of reading. There's a lot of really good books out there for LGBTQIA plus families that you can find. We really haven't had any resistance. Every once in a while, it's always like a 10-year-old little girl, because they tend to be smarter. We'll go to the park and they'll say, "Where's their mommy? Where's their mommy?" And we try to navigate that and say, "Well, our girls have two dads." And there's a lot of really good podcasts. Rosie O'Donnell has a wonderful podcast. She is a personal hero. I would try to plug in with her, go to her social media pages. And she has a podcast, or she was part of a podcast that's about LGBTQ adoptive families and surrogate families that was very helpful for us. And our own personal story, we're at the phase now where, I don't know, the dads out there, one of our girls, and they're brilliant. They're two, all of them. The other day, one of them, I walk in the room and she calls me mommy out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, you want to call me mommy? I had a kind of, what does that mean? I'm not effeminate. Why should call? And I'm like, for the first time in my life, I'm like, if she's calling me mommy and comparing me to my mother, sorry, and my mother-in-law, there's no better honor. And then that happened for a week, and then she called me daddy again. So there's just no hard and fast rules. And just to kind of bring it all back, it's just the tenets that we learn are kind of what guides us through this crazy, wonderful tapestry. And, we learned how to, what it means to keep their birth mom in unfortunately, one of our daughter's birth moms, one of our daughter's birth mom passed. And, we'll be setting tables we'll be setting a place setting for them at every holiday. Our twins' birth mom happened to be a graphic designer, and I was able to find some stuff of hers, and we're going to frame it and put it in the house and say, your mommy made this. And just kind of respecting, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 4 dogs. Just respecting, their story, and, taking it from there. And none of it's going to be ideal. Like everybody, you hear these wonderful stories, and I hope it is for all of you, but it's your story, and it's going to be a wonderful story. And that's really it.
Thank you, Vito. We really appreciate you sharing. I think it's always nice to have other experiences be heard in these spaces. So thank you. Thank you for coming out and giving us all that. All right, guys, we do have to move on. I'm sorry because of timing. I do want to announce the lucky raffle winner who will be receiving a $100 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to Mr. Brian Fell. Very exciting. I will be in touch with you, Brian, to get you your lovely gift card. Super exciting. I just got news that we have surpassed our goal and we are at $730, guys. Thank you so much for all of your donations. Again, all of that money goes directly back into AFTH's programs and services. We appreciate you. Your support means a lot to this agency. Okay, so we are wrapping things up. Lots of great conversation today. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much to everybody for coming out and continuing to support the clients we work with, as well as Adoptions from the Heart. This was an incredible evening full of amazing voices and experiences. We want to thank you guys for being a part of this. We would not be who we are without the clients that we service, and we appreciate you guys coming back and showing your support. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple so that you don't miss all of the great things that we are talking about. The podcast is something newer at Adoptions from the Heart, and there's some really great topics and some great presenters. So please join in and check that out. You can continue to watch amazing adoption experiences on AFTH TV. We are on YouTube as well as Facebook, so please be sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to keep up to date with more of our events and fundraisers. We are actually hosting a New York annual family picnic on August 24th. Darlene and we're hoping that you guys are going to come because it's been a long time since I know you guys have had an in-person conference at all. So please be sure to come in and join in for that fundraiser. Turning Point fundraiser is going to be on September 6th. Again, we have so many resources at the agency, guys. If you haven't seen, we have online webinars with a lot of great educational topics, discussing things that are important and relevant to what we're seeing. We also have a lot of great support groups for adoptive parents, as well as expecting and birth parents to come together and lean on one another. If you guys ever have any questions or want to check out what types of events are going on or what types of support groups we have, just call any local office. Any social worker at our agency is willing to connect with you. Thank you so much again to our guest presenters for taking the time, especially those who have little ones who I'm sure are ready to go to bed. We appreciate you coming on into this space and just sharing your journey with adoption. Best wishes to all of you. And again, thank you on behalf of Adoptions from the Heart. Have a good night, everybody.